Hi and welcome to the We Need a Rose podcast. And David, we are 60. Well, Jose, you are 3. Because this is the 60th episode of We Need a Rose. And Jose, it's now your third time with us. And I've decided you are no longer a co-host, but the much more fancy sounding our US correspondent.
Ooh, I like it.
I do too, actually. That's really nice.
And David, you're here as well, which is nice.
No, I know what co-host is fine. There's nothing special about it. But can we drop the co?
I mean, I feel like that is kind of like a nice, like you equalize each other. You're not just your hosts. I mean, that's what daytime morning shows do, right?
Yeah, Neil likes the superiority of it.
It's purely down to the amount of work put in versus the amount of work you put in.
Hey, I turn up, don't I?
Exactly, and then there's the scripting, there's the editing, there's running the busy socials. I'm going to talk about the busy socials actually in a little minute. So now, with our intrepid three-man team, we are making some minor changes to the podcast going forward, and the format will be the following. We say now until it changes in the next one.
I was going to say this.
Well, you know what's going to happen, David. We're going to try and make
We're
it
never
orderly.
going to keep it the same.
Exactly. I'm going to try and establish some order, some rules, and then it's just all going to go out the window in the next one. So the idea for this one, at least, is going to be we are going to each start with a film or TV news story that we're going to talk about, and then we're going to move into our What We've Been Watching section. And then that's also going to feature our new reoccurring section, What David Has Been Made to Watch by his partner, usually against his will, and then our even newer segment, What We've Made Jose Watch, because he's a newbie to the team, and we are most definitely going to feed him a diet of UK shows he's hopefully never heard of. Then we're going to have all our reviews, and any spoiler reviews will be saved until the end of the podcast, and clearly marked on our episode notes and by our Spoilers Ahead jingle.
Warning, people. Spoilers ahead.
Also, thanks to everyone who's downloaded our last episode, because we have now had our most ever downloads in one day. And so we have to ask, David, was it the Jose effect?
It must have been.
We have now had... I'm literally just refreshing it to look now.
Now, don't tell people the number. Keep it mysterious.
Okay, well, it's a
Make
lot.
it seem as if it's loads.
It is a lot.
Like thousands. I'm talking, Neil.
Comparatively for us, I will say it's triple now what we get for an average episode in its entirety on the first day of the episode.
Definitely not say the number, because now it will seem really sad. We'll keep...
You know, I have to say, I didn't want to include myself into the possibilities, but I appreciate you thinking it's me. I mean,
unfortunately, Jose, I mean, as great as it has for you to be joining us, and I'm sure you've told all your friends and family, which has definitely bumped the downloads, because that's what when we did our very first few episodes, we were like, yeah, we get this many people listening, and then it really tailed off when all our friends and family were like, okay, we've listened a couple of times, we know them in real life, why do we want to listen talking for hours? And so now, and then we kind of got our actual fans who listen to us on a regular basis, and it was a small but mighty number, and they were loyal. They stuck with us all. Except for that one really bad episode where David got drunk and it was very bad. You remember that one, David?
No, that was one of my personal favourites.
Yeah, no one else.
I don't remember much of it.
I know you don't.
That's why it went like a blur.
I love the two different dynamics here. It's like, I don't remember anything. I loved it. I remember everything. I hated it. Herding kittens.
Herding kittens. Yes, that's how it felt on that episode.
I understand.
I think actually what it has been is we have discovered there are a lot of fans of Lockwood & Co. out there. And we have thank you for everyone who's downloaded in the last day or so. Oh, sorry, in the last week or so, because this is now being recorded after that. But as we record this, the episode went out yesterday. And we have had retweets. We've had people dropping us messages saying it was great, we loved it. And, you know, it's a rarity for us. So we're going to take that win. And I guess that also means, guys, we are going to do a spoiler special on Lockwood & Co. Because people clearly love hearing about it, and they actually enjoyed hearing us talk about it. So once we're all up to date on it, we are going to crack through and do a special on that as well.
Yay!
That sounded
Sorry. I know, I was late, so sorry.
You was Googling, David, and we can see you now. We can see you when you're Googling.
Nah, I was
I can just see things.
Yeah,
I saw that sticky note. You're more advanced than me.
You know what? I'm going to close this because
it's distracting you.
Yeah, there you go.
It's like the whole kitten analogy from earlier. Anyway, first up, we're going to have news.
News.
And in film news, my news story of the week is that Robert Eggers, director of The Witch, The Lighthouse, and The Northman, is cracking on with his next film, which is a new adaptation of the classic Nosferatu, which, as we all know, or some of us maybe don't, was made in 1922 by F.W. Murnau and starred Max Schreck. Not actual Shrek, David, before I saw that look on your face. It was not
Mike
Shrek.
Myers is not that old.
He is now.
He's pretty old, yeah. He's-
But he starred as the villainous Count Orlok. And you're thinking, well, if this is like a Dracula story, why not Dracula? Well, the 1922 film of Nosferatu was an unauthorized telling of the classic story, which meant many of the names had to be changed, which was a defense against copyright infringement. So, now you know. Now, this is Egger's fourth film, and the story has been reimagined and set in 19th century Germany about a haunted young woman played by Lily Rose Depp and an ancient Transylvanian vampire played by Pennywise himself, Bill Skarsgård, who is stalking her. And the film's also going to feature someone who can't get enough of being in vampire films this year, Nicholas Hoult, who we're going to see in Renfield in a couple of months' time. Emma Corrin from The Crown, and Robert Eggers' regulars, William Dafoe and Ralph Ineson. And just cast, despite the film actually being filmed at the moment, is Kick-Ass himself, Aaron Taylor-Johnson's going to be in it as well. And come on, this is a Robert Eggers film, so do not be surprised to see Anya Taylor-Joy rock up at some point, because she's in almost every one of his films.
Although I feel like she's perfect casting for a Nosferatu film.
Yeah, I imagine at some point they had a conversation where she was going to be the lead and not Lily Rose Depp, who I don't think I've seen in anything.
I think you have, you just don't know what she looks like.
A younger female Johnny Depp, crossed with Vanessa Paradis, I'd imagine.
Maybe. Yeah. That's usually how it goes.
Do you think Eggers is just going through all the Skarsgårds? He's just going to tick off a Skarsgård. Like, oh, got that one.
Stellan will be in the next one, won't he?
Yep.
And
The
then
family is very talented, isn't it?
Well, who was the other one? The guy who plays Floki in Vikings, Gustav Skarsgård. He was really good as well. He hasn't done a film with him yet, so he can be in as well. Also, you've got William Dafoe in a vampire film again, and if anyone remembers Shadow of the Vampire from the early 2000s, that was superb. I think he was even Oscar nominated for that. I'm not 100% on that, but I think he was. And I'm guessing Dafoe has got to be some kind of even older ancient vampire. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm giving this a 9. I am very excited because, Northman was one of my top 3 films of last year.
Oh, okay.
David, what is your news story of the week?
Well, Neil, my news story is that The Breakfast Club is doing surprisingly well still at the domestic box office. It has earned $45 million now, but it's done really badly at the international box office, and I don't know why, because, it's such a good representation of American Teenage Times at the moment.
I didn't know it had been re-released.
It hasn't been.
Was this a new version of The Breakfast Club?
No, this is the re-release of the original, right?
No. This is the original Breakfast Club.
Oh,
so it's been re-released in the States.
We're in 1985 here, Neil. Back to the Future's just been released.
Right.
I'm
I don't think I know about
podcast.
this. I haven't heard of any re-release of The Breakfast Club here.
There hasn't been. This has gone down way more confusing than I thought. You guys would have got it by now.
You're trying to do a bit, aren't you? You're trying to do a bit.
1985. The Breakfast Club's been released. It's when, Back to the Future's out. I'm trying to tie it back to the podcast. You know what? Maybe I should have shared the idea before doing it. But that's going to be my thing. I'm going to share movie stories. But from the
1985.
I might mix it up with some dates, but yeah.
You could say on this date in 1985, that would have been a good idea.
That would have been the news.
Now, that would have been way more obvious.
Yeah.
But we would have actually known we would have known what you was going on about. And also, dear listener, we wouldn't have had whatever that segment just was. And quickly brushing that away, Jose, what is your news story?
My news story is the coverage of Citadel, a TV show from Amazon. I got some information from Variety. It's actually, if no one's seen it, the trailer just came out recently. Has Priyanka Chopra Jonas and Richard Madden in a spy series, but it's interesting because it starts off with them not remembering who they are. Okay. And what you can tell from the trailer is that it won't take itself completely seriously, but it has the budget to make it look like it's taking itself seriously. It's been 2 years in production, and the estimated cost of this production is $185 million for a show, which is, to me, is mind-boggling.
That's a lot of money.
Yes.
Jeff can afford it.
For a show that's had next to no marketing at the moment.
When's it due out? Do we know when it's due out?
It's due out April 28th. It's going to start off with the first 2 episodes. It's expected to have 6 total episodes. But here's what's going to help you understand why such a big push. It's put on by the Russo brothers and their production company, Agbo, Agbo, who I follow on TikTok, by the way, because their TikTok is pretty funny. And they have planned spin-offs for different parts of the world. Not just different parts of the country, but different parts of the world. According to the Variety, it says that if, let's say, it goes to Italy, India, and Mexico, they will also be speaking in their native languages, not just English.
Okay, cool. So that's kind of like what 1899 did on Netflix recently. There was a show.
Yeah.
There's a show where all the characters talk to their own language.
I saw the trailer and it looks really fun. It looks like like I said, it's not going to take itself too seriously because there's some good jokes in there. The only thing is they're going to push the whole romantic angle between Richard Madden and Priyanka Chopra Jonas right from the start, because I think they just needed that to really bring them together in this way. And actually, my favorite part is Stanley Tucci is involved.
Yes, the Tooch.
I love Stanley Tucci. And here's the funny thing is, when I realized writing this down, Stanley Tucci plays the same guy in every movie or role that he has, but he's just so charming that you don't care.
That's like my old Bill Murray theory, that Bill Murray has played the exact same role in every film ever. But when he was younger, that performance, that sarcastic dry wit he has, that was a comedy in the 80s and the early 90s. As he got older, a new wave of directors was like, what if we took that performance but put it in a drama? So like all the stuff he does with Wes Anderson, and then and because he's older and he's still sarcastic and dry, it's a bit more sadder now. It's a bit more pathos to it than just. But he hasn't changed what he does.
Where does Lost in Translation fall?
Smack bang in the middle of that.
Yeah, I would say that.
He is doing the same thing. He is doing the same performance.
But you're right with the Tooch.
But you know what? It's so good. Bill Murray, Stanley Tucci. Even Keanu
Leslie
Reeves.
Manville's in it as well. Timothy Busfield. Yeah. I haven't heard a lot of the rest of the cast, but if they spent 180 million on it, then I guess that money's going on the screen.
Yes, I mean you could tell that in the interview that I read, Madden said that usually these action movies go like 20% action, 80% drama, or vice versa, and he tried to push it up by saying we're going to do 100% action, 100% drama. I mean, that's kind of a weird thing to say, but I like the enthusiasm.
That doesn't make any sense.
That makes 200%, and that's not actual percentage when it comes to...
they should have cast Molly Ringwald in this, because I think she's going to be a massive actress in the future.
I see what you're doing, David. And now we're aware of it. It's still bad.
She's got a bright future ahead of her.
She does. She's going to be huge, man.
Jesus
I'm going to go with it, Neil. I'm going to go with it.
Yeah,
I'm going to go be ill from it. And next up, we're going to be talking what we've been watching. And first up, I have been watching Servant on Apple TV. And we are only a couple of episodes away from the end of the show for good. And I've constantly harped on about this show over the years. And the final season is definitely delivering the goods. And I'm very excited because there are only 2 episodes left. Rupert Grint has been superb in it. And honestly, if you just know him as like Ron Weasley, watch Servant. I think more people might have seen him because of Knock at the Cabin recently, but honestly, his performance, he's the MVP of the show for me. Grint, he's so good in this because you don't expect to see him as an alcoholic ex-druggie with an American accent. Just don't expect it. But he's superb. I've also finished Yellowstone prequel 1923 with Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren. And that suffers the same strengths and weaknesses as the Yellowstone 1883 series, in that there's some fantastic acting and some great cinematography in the show, but there are always a few plot strands that absolutely go nowhere or are very badly acted. Also, my most hated thing about Yellowstone 1883 was the annoying, pointless voiceovers, and you know about this, David. The young daughter's voiceovers, they were so bad. And it was just the tone of her voice. She sounded so bored. It was like, the show would be great. You'd have Sam Elliott, there'd be great acting. And then she'd be like, clouds are in the sky. Where do clouds come from? You're like, for fuck's sake, it doesn't matter. It's got nothing to do with the story. Your VOs are terrible. She was a fine actress in the show.
She high doing it. Where do clouds come from?
My question is, how do you have Sam Elliott on the cast and not have him
do the voiceover? Right? So, anyway, that's 1883. And this is Yellowstone 1923, and we've still got her doing the occasional voiceover in the show, despite her character not being in the show. And this is what annoys me more than anything in the history of the world. Well, actually, that's a bit of an overstatement. But you've got Harrison Ford, Helen Mirren, and Timothy Dalton in the same show. And why not have them do the voiceovers, man? Like, any one of them has got a much better voice and could put more passion and feeling into it. It's a nice, simple show. Ford and Mirren are brilliant as good guys. You've got the bad guys led by Timothy Dalton at his moustache-twirling villain best. And you've also got Jerome Flynn from Game of Thrones, who just seems to be playing Bronn from Game of Thrones again. I was like literally watching it going, there's a scene with him and prostitutes. I was like, he just must feel like I was coming to work 10 years ago on Game of Thrones.
Is it early Bronn or like late Bronn where he had really bad
It's
diet?
both so far. But
Oh.
he starts off as like, he's kind of like he becomes Dalton's kind of main henchman as the show goes on. We're 10 episodes in, and that's it for season 1. But there are 10 more to come in season 2. But they've only planned it out for 2 seasons. So yeah, I'm quite enjoying it. And that's all on Paramount Plus. Also, has anyone else started You? We did talk about it briefly before. I have binged all of season 1 and 2 or 3 episodes into season 2 at the minute.
I have to apologize. I wanted to watch You, but I decided to catch up on Shrinking instead because that was new.
No, we will get to You at some point once we're kind of somewhere there on it.
I will watch it. I will watch it. That is definitely on my list.
The reason I'm watching it is because everyone has like gone on about how the new 4 series is just insane and over the top and completely bizarre and weird. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll start watching it. And basically, from what I've seen of season 1, again, no spoilers for Jose you, David, who have not started it yet. But the season 1 is essentially the story of Joe, a lowly bookseller obsessed by a girl named Beck. And what I immediately liked about the show is it reminds me of Dexter, and that the main character of Joe is clearly a psychotic murderer, but he's charismatic enough that he actually gets us to root for him and be on his side, despite all the horrific shit he does. And as you meet more of the other characters in the show, what keeps you on side with him is the rest of the characters are even more despicable than he is. And you're like, yeah, they deserve to die. Fair enough. Go kill them.
Wow.
Kill them all.
How is that like Dexter? Dexter's the most dry character.
Oh, because it's got the continual internal monologue voiceover. It's honestly, it's very similar to Dexter. Like when he's talking about what he's going to do to people and that, this is exactly what Joe's doing. And then he'll be in the scene and he'll be saying something completely different to them. And then you hear his inner monologue of like, I'm going to gut you horribly and things like that. So it's very dark and it's trash. It's really trashy, but in a good, entertaining
Nice family
way.
friendly film. Nice. Okay. Well,
Show.
Yeah.
4-season show, David. I'm on to season 2 now, and I think I'm mainlining at least an episode a day at the moment. So hopefully I'll be up to season 4 and I can be with all the cool kids.
You should do is live tweet as you're watching episodes. Maybe do that.
I'm too tired. It's like I watch them late at night, and my
I was going to say, you need to get Neil off Twitter. That's
not on there. I've tried the live tweeting thing a couple of times, and my fingers just hurt by the end of the day. My hand is literally seizing up because being an editor, I'm literally just like on the computer all day, and then
I see.
I kind of have a no device policy when I go to bed.
That's fair. I'm very tempted to do a live tweet or at least capture reactions while I watch Game of Thrones. I don't know if I've told you guys, but I haven't seen anything past episode 2.
Of
Oh my
season
god, I
one.
would do that with you. I would do that with you.
Oh my god!
No,
Okay, we're gonna plan
I
this.
would do like a separate podcast just dedicated to Game of Thrones episodes. Every single one of them.
All right, David.
I am
We're gonna
there,
talk
Jose.
about this. Excellent. All right, let's cut it off now because I know we can go too much into this.
You've only seen 2 episodes.
2 episodes.
Do you know
And-
spoilers?
Okay, yeah, that's the thing is I know spoilers, but obviously I don't know when everything happens. So I'll probably catch on as it's about to happen, like with like 5 seconds notice. I'll be like, kind of like that.
Jose, I think we have to have a little chat here that if we'd known beforehand you'd only ever watch 2 episodes of Game of Thrones, you might not be sitting here. David's literally got a sword in the background,
Yeah,
He's
dude,
literally-
look at this. Look.
Yes, no,
To people I'm pointing at a shield.
I
He's
should have
pointing at
realized.
a
I've got a
shield
sword.
of
Let me
Winterfell.
show you my sword, Jose.
He can't.
You
David,
did talk about this
isn't-
before, didn't you?
David, this is an audio medium. All I say is, David, put it back in its sheath.
There we go. I say let's put a poll up to see who wants to see a screenshot of David's sword.
Yes, that would be the way to do it.
There we go.
I've got one over there as well, but I'll leave that there.
And finally, on our What We've Been Watching section, I have watched Amazon's new music drama, Daisy Jones and the Six, a 10-part rock and roll drama about the eponymous band. And they dropped the first 3 episodes in one go last Friday on Amazon. And
okay.
I ended up watching all 3 back to back. Now, it's based on a famous book from 2019 by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And the story revolves around a documentary being made in the modern day about this band. And we cut back and forth from their humble beginnings to superstardom and the inevitable breakup. Now, the book was loosely based on the story of Fleetwood Mac. So expect lots of interband arguments, fights, and relationships. Now, the setup for this show immediately made me think of Cameron Crowe's Almost Famous, which is a brilliant film that I love. And it does share some of that DNA. Also, you've got Riley Keough, who is Elvis's granddaughter, starring as the main singer, Daisy Jones. And then you've got British actor Sam Claflin as, he's a singer-songwriter guy called Billy Dunn. And it's only when they put the two of them together in the same band, they get superstardom. Now, Keough is superb in it. And she's like the star of the show, hands down. And the music budget for this show must have been through the roof, because every couple of seconds you've got, oh, there's that famous song from the 70s. There's that other famous song from the 70s.
By the way, do you know that they actually created an album for the show and they are touring with that album?
I did not know they were touring. I knew they'd created this album. That's insane.
I saw in interviews. The
songs are good. Like their own material is good. And that if you're going to do a music-based show, you kind of need to write your own music really for it.
Yes.
However, the show moves very slowly in the first 3 episodes, and it's only like the midway point of the 3rd episode that Daisy Jones even meets the Dunn brothers to form Daisy Jones and the Six. And I was kind of like, I'm watching it going, okay, she's good, the band are good, but the problem with the show is, and I can't quite put my finger on it yet, but I think it's taking too long to get going if it's only going to be a 10-parter. And they haven't even got the band together by the 3rd episode. And there is almost no characterization or character development with the rest of the band. And you're just like, there's so much focus on the singer and his storyline and Daisy Jones and her storyline that the rest of the band, there's no development at all in it. And it's kind of disappointing.
I saw in interviews that I believe that the band are actual band members or like real musicians, and so I don't know how much actual acting experience they have.
Yeah, because 2 of them are brothers. So I wonder if they cast the band knowing they were going to be taking this out on the road as a touring band.
That makes a lot of sense, because I didn't see any talk about who the actors were of the rest of the show.
Do you know what, though? That would be a more interesting story than the actual show at the minute, I think. Doing a documentary about the show that was about a show of a book and on the road with that, unless they're planning that as well. If I was Amazon, I'd be like, yep, that's all scheduled, because then you might get some actual reality in it.
I mean, it's just really interesting because what's her name? That
Riley Keough.
Riley. I saw her interview and she's like, I was never really interested in music. I was more a fan of acting, but to be in this show, she had to take lessons along with the other actor. Crap, I forgot his name.
Yeah, Sam Claflin. Yeah, he learned how to sing and play guitar for this show. And everyone else is just like, fuck off, you're that good, really, you know.
Well, she admitted that when they first met and they first had that just initial reading where they were just kind of trying to learn how to sing, they were both fairly bad. So I guess he actually got a lot better.
I wonder if I think this was planned before COVID, this show. So they probably had an extra bit of time to actually learn their instruments and just sitting there.
Yes.
I think I heard an interview with Sam Claflin on a podcast over here, and he basically said, I just got a bit more time to actually learn how to play. You know, everyone who didn't play guitar said, oh, I'm going to learn guitar during lockdown, except he actually was doing it for a role. Okay, so that about rounds up what I've been watching in the last week or so. What have we made you watch, Jose? One of our new segments we're kind of doing on the podcast is it's kind of like a cultural exchange between England and America. So we're essentially, and as Jose's a newbie here on the pod, we're going to force him to watch loads of UK shows he hopefully hasn't heard of. And the first couple we kind of chucked you away to see, I believe there was Derry Girls and Clarkson's Farm. Now, tell us about Derry Girls.
Derry Girls. I was able to watch the first episode. And I'm going to tell you, I am surprised just how well the cinematography is of these shows. It seems like just off my personal experience, I would like, oh, it's a comedy about girls going to school. So I would think, oh, the budget's fairly low. but the quality of what I saw, I'm like, this is really good, and they're really funny. And immediately, I feel bad for the male cousin who has to go to an all-girls school. I just know that
the wee
this-
gay fella.
The wee,
Is he? Is it official?
No, they just keep
Oh,
calling
no.
that.
Yes, I love it because it's just he'd be hurt going to a boys' school, and I could tell I'm definitely gonna have to put away some time to see that show, because if the first episode can have those characters be that funny right away, I can't wait to see what they grow into.
I think it's 3 seasons in total of Derry Girls, and it's only 6 episodes a season, so it's not going to take long to do when you find where you can watch it.
30-minute episodes as well, isn't it?
Yes.
So yeah.
What they do really well is it's kind of episode of the week and what scrape the girls are going to get into each week, but then they start introducing a bit more of what the parents do, and it really it's what me and David found fascinating about it was. It keys you in on history that we weren't taught when we were in school in the UK. We didn't get taught at school all about the troubles with Ireland. We were getting taught, the UK government's version of what everything was going. And so we actually learnt more about the conflict in Ireland, between Ireland and England and all that, from watching this show. And so many people said that. And that's kind of the show's thesis. As it kind of goes on, there'll be a bit on the TV of what's happening in the news. And you're just like, holy shit, we didn't know about that. And it does such a good job of explaining it.
Yeah, I got to say, it was really interesting that they had to shut down a bridge, and then the rest of the town and the people are like, oh, just another day. This is inconvenience. And to the rest of us, like, I mean, I'm assuming in the US and the UK overall, like, we'd be like, oh my God, there's a bomb. So I think it's really interesting to see how commonplace it is for them to have to deal with.
I think it was just a way of life for them over there. But again, it's one of these shows that the finale I thought was one of the best half hours of TV. Like for season finales, for the last episodes of a show, it was perfect. It was one of my shows of the year last year when it came out. But the main question, Jose, you must have had to have subtitles on it, because I need to watch that show with subtitles on it.
So, to watch that show, I had to use a website that allowed me to watch it, and unfortunately, it did not have subtitles. So I was like,
Oh my
laser
You
focused.
naughty boy, Jose.
I was laser focused on trying to catch as much as I could, and so I was just going by like 80% at best.
Is it not on your Netflix?
Yeah, I think it's on Netflix.
You know what? I didn't check.
You'll get different shows, won't you, for the US and the UK?
Yes, that is correct.
You could try just tapping into a VPN for the UK and use it that way.
I'd have
And
to
that's
figure
all
out how to do
completely
that.
legal.
Yes, VPN. What's it? NordVPN and Shark something.
If they want to give us a sponsor, that's completely fine as well. Yeah,
That would be great, as long as it's reputable.
one of the greatest in the market, apparently.
There we
So,
go.
so great. We got you hooked on Derry Girls. You're going to watch the rest of that. And the other
Yes.
show is something that Actually, this is kind of one of the first things that David forced me to watch, and I was like, I've got no interest in this. This is going to be terrible, and I loved it. And that show is Clarkson's Farm.
Yes, I also watched the first episode, and immediately I knew it was going to be something I enjoyed because he bought a tractor, but not just any tractor, a Lamborghini tractor. And it's just like, of course. But then again, at the same time, I'm like, he's trying to portray that he's starting fresh with all new equipment. And I'm like, you had this farm, you had someone taking care of it, you had the equipment, but I guess they have to put on a show. But I think what it's all about is, Clarkson's great as a host, but the cinematography is always great. That's why I loved Top Gear and the Grand Tour.
The money's on the screen with that show.
That's always got me with the other shows that him and the other guys were on. It's just the cinematography just sucks you in. You just can't look away.
The other farmer, Caleb, in the show, he's blown up, like over here.
I can imagine.
Since like his whole life's been turned upside down, and he was literally just a contract farmer.
I just have to ask,
is.
did he ever leave that town? Like,
No.
because in the first episode he says he's never left, never even gone to London.
Oh well,
Has he-
wait and see. Stuff happens.
Excellent.
Stuff
Excellent.
happens.
I love
Yeah,
it.
and in season 2, he leaves the ground for the first time.
I love that. Oh, I love that. I can't wait.
Have you met Gerald yet?
No, I don't believe I
Gerald. Okay. It's the man that you will not be able to understand a word of.
And even the subtitles.
We can't even understand a word.
They don't
of
even.
him.
Yeah, like that's the running joke in the show is that he'll walk up to Clarkson and like say something, and we might understand about 20% of what he says because he's got such a
thick country accent. Proper thick.
You know what it reminds me of when I hear that is Hot Fuzz and that one character that they have to arrest with all those ammunition.
Yeah, that's it.
Yes, that's it.
Exactly it.
Same thing.
It's that guy, but actually in real life.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's so funny.
They exist.
The second series has just finished, and I think before Clarkson got into a lot of trouble for his comments about a certain royal couple, they'd already pretty much finished filming season 3. So we're getting a third and final season of it probably this time next year. Because season 2 just came out, and so yeah, we've binged all that now. And what I like about
I was going to say, my favourite part about season 2 is that they created a villain. There's a villain of season 2, and it's not what you might think it is. It's not a person. It's a district council, and everyone in the world can relate to that.
There's actually a news story I saw online today where that council are complaining that they were misrepresented in the show.
Surprise!
Everyone in the world can relate to a district council, and them being villain.
When I say I wasn't a Clarkson fan, I don't mean like, I hated him and that. I'm just not a car guy. For me, a car's something that gets me from A to B. So I had no interest. I never watched Top Gear. I wasn't that fussed by any of it, to be fair. And so I walked into this not having any preconceptions about the guy. And I just found him entertaining. And as it went on, and this is, I think, the legacy of the show, it's raised the awareness, especially in the UK, of how hard a lifestyle farming is. And the amount of how it's so hard to do the job these guys do, and it's brought this onto a national scale for conversation, which is great, and that's the best thing he's done with it.
No,
how
I love
bad
that.
it is post Brexit as well. Some of the policies that are being put in place for farmers as well. Just you learn all about these things that you just wouldn't know because it's not in the news. He's given everybody a voice, and I mean in season 2 he even wins an award for like best representation. But it's not just, he doesn't just leave it at his award and cut the rest of it. He gives everybody else a platform, and he gives that award and a platform, this like farming award. That was, I really liked that moment. It wasn't just, here's my award and cut it. He shows everybody else.
Do you think it was something as a result of him learning from season 1 and then going into season 2? Or was that something that you think the showrunners expected to try to bring from the beginning?
I think it was something that sort of came along naturally through progression of the show, because within the show you've got one character who is like Clarkson's mentor, essentially, who's like the really knowledgeable person in farming. Charlie, essentially. And he is that character. So he is basically the character that educates everybody on farming, because he's educating Clarkson on farming, and that is the show basically. And in doing that, you're educating us, the audience, as to the realities of it all.
I quite liked him. He was a very nice breath of fresh air, not sarcastic as much as some of the other hosts he's worked with. You know, not in a bad way, but like it's just different.
Well, it's really one of these nice shows, isn't it? It's just a nice, easy watch, and like the reason behind it. I mean, I don't, like you said, we don't know why he decided to have the show, the idea, but the byproduct of it has been massively positive. You know, it shows you what a hard job being in the UK farming industry is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like you mentioned, Jose, there's clearly a lot of staged moments in it. Like, a lot of it is staged and scripted. Like in the second episode, there's a point where he doesn't put enough weight on the... Like, he puts too much weight on the back of his tractor. And it's like, I said to Natasha, like, he needs to put weights on the front of his tractor. I know that. I don't own a tractor, but I know he needs to counterweight. And he's not doing it. And that is all just for the show, for a laugh.
Yeah, he kind of plays a bit of a bumbling idiot in regards to his farming news, doesn't he? But I think, again, that's created by the producers, because Clarkson's so good at driving and the car stuff. It's take him out of his comfort zone, make him be humiliated on an episode by episode basis.
What we love more than anything as us Brits, we like to point and laugh at people. And,
haughtily. Right, so that's what Jose's been. So Jose, I take it you're going to carry on with both shows. I would watch Derry Girls again with subtitles as soon as you can find it. because
do.
you will probably then understand about 70% of it. Because even still, some of the Irish phrases and words, even though you can see what they are, even for me, I was like, right, don't know what that means. So, David, what
Yes,
have
sir.
you been made to watch against your
Ooh.
will?
What haven't I been made to watch this week? Well, there's been 3 things, but I think I'll have to whittle them down to just the one of the made you've been watched. I've been I've been a good boyfriend this week. I've allowed. Well, I say allowed. You
Allowed?
guys
Oh
haven't-
dear.
No. That was a bad word. You guys haven't made me watch stuff, which is what's usually happening. I'm normally the what's made David watch, not what's made Jose watch. I'm just saying words at this point. Anyway, I've been watching Red Rose.
Warning, people. Spoilers ahead.
I finished it. It's on Netflix at the moment. It was originally released on BBC Three, so you can watch it over here on BBC iPlayer or on Netflix. Jose, again, it's probably a VPN jobby for you, but I wouldn't recommend watching it in the first place.
Oh,
And with a lot of
Spoiler.
things, I'm going to say is I'm going to be a bit of a negative Nancy on today's episode with a lot of the content that I've been watching.
a doubting David.
So, Red Rose was an 8-episode series about a teenage drama, essentially, and a phone app that infiltrates them and starts haunting them and getting them to do tasks like posting on their Facebook for them, and basically just making their lives living hell until they either want to commit suicide or get murdered in some way.
Oh wow!
Spoilers, I suppose.
Is this more of a like horror haunting, or
Well, this is
like...
it. So it started off very promisingly. Within the first episode, the first few scenes, it started off like a horror film, like a horror show, and I got really into it at that point because I thought, oh, this is an interesting look at how you can use technology to create ghostly apparitions and to scare people. So that was interesting to me. It just didn't follow through with that premise. The show was more like a episode of the Black Mirror. Do you know Black Mirror?
Oh yes,
It was like Black Mirror, but one episode of Black Mirror spread out over 8 episodes.
Oh, so it's just got too thin.
That was the show, essentially. You could maybe make it... It should have really been a 2-episode show, with the first 2 episodes being the first episode, and then the rest of the show being the second episode. Because there was a lot of story beats that you could have just cut. The dialogue should have been better. The script lost its way about after the second episode. Well, after the third episode, the script lost its way, and it lost that horror charm that came with it. That ghost, like the tech ghostly apparitions that I quite enjoyed at the beginning. But having said that, there were a few scatterings of little gold dust in there. Certain performances by relatively unknown actresses. Isis Hainsworth, who plays... it's hard to not spoil it. Spoilers are hard.
Well,
who plays
just-
character
yeah,
in the
A character.
in the show. She was brilliant. I thought she was excellent. Part of the main Friends group. And I also really liked Taz. Taz is my man, played by Ali Khan. I'm hoping to see him in more stuff because he just comes out with the weirdest random moments of comedy. He was basically a little bit of comedy relief in the show, but done in a more in a way which was just like he'll say something and not realize what he's saying.
Oh, so
sort of like a more realistic way of.
He has no filter.
Yeah, kind of.
unintentionally funny by
Unintentional funny. Yeah, that's it. But yeah, no, I wouldn't recommend Rose Red, guys. I'd give it a 6.
A 6? That sounds quite... Surely
That
that's a
sounds
mild
fair.
recommendation.
Nah, well, a 5 then if a 6 is
Yeah,
a
5.
recommendation.
I mean, how was the cinematography? How did it look?
Yeah.
Okay, no, it's like there wasn't anything...
It wasn't a big budget, was it? Because if it's BBC
with
Three...
the horror element. So basically, how they did the horror with the tech is you'd be on a video call and there'd be a ghost behind you in the video call, but the ghost would be somebody within the show that's committed suicide later on, and they'd be using her voice and they'd be using all of that. The reveal of what's happening around the app was very disappointing.
Okay.
And that is hopefully the point of this segment, David, is that we're not just here to recommend good shows, we're also here to warn people away from terrible shit that's going to waste their time.
Exactly.
I think, sadly, it sounds like a lot of your stuff coming up is going to be those segments.
Before we move on, though, a movie and a show.
Okay.
And then a show, and then a movie I actually wanted to watch. So, the quick part on a documentary. A 3-part documentary. I've not told you about this.
Okay.
A 3-part documentary that's on Netflix right now.
Is it about serial killers?
No. It's
Wow.
called the Murdoch family, the Murdoch murders, the Deadly Dynasty.
But it's
And
still about murders.
It is. No, it's not really. It's about a series of mysterious.
The word
deaths.
murder is in the title of the
I
show,
know.
David.
It's misleading. It's misleading. It's more of a. There's 2 people that are murdered in it out of 5 deaths. So it's a series of 5 deaths that are all linked to this Murdoch family.
Okay.
That have a lot of sway and power in a small town of Louisiana.
Ah,
You know, they're involved in the police. They're involved in.
is this the one where they just released the results of the trial?
Did they? I've not heard this.
Yes.
Because that was going to be one of the negatives I was going to say. The start of it starts off really well with the death of one of the tragic deaths of one of the teenage girls. That happens in it. And then
Yes.
the documentary, it feels like the documentary was released way too early because you've got no resolution to any of the anything
Yes.
that's happened in it. And the 3rd episode especially becomes very hearsay. Within this
I see.
documentary. So I watched this documentary for the first 1.5 episodes. And then they need to add a 4th or 5th episode onto this to actually bring some final context as to what's happening. Because you can't... It started off so well. And then at the end, it just became all complete hearsay of what's going on. And it just made no sense.
So just to kind of confirm, this is the current one where the father was accused of killing his wife and his son.
Yes, that is it.
The trial results are out. I don't know. Do you want to know what the
Yes, I
results
do.
were?
I do want to know. Tell me.
He was convicted. He's going to
He was?
2
No
life
way!
sentences. Yes.
Natasha!
Yes.
For
She's not
listeners,
paying any attention.
David is trying to let his fiancée know about this.
Yes.
Yeah,
2
well,
life
she'd be well
sentences.
interested in.
And there have been interviews that the jurors have given that says he looked like he could turn off and on his emotions. It didn't look genuine, and there was damning evidence of his voice potentially in the background of one of the voicemails minutes before the murders. So his claim was that he wasn't even in the area.
That's in the documentary. That bit.
Yeah,
That's in the documentary. So the documentary is based off a teenage girl that dies in a boating accident, involving this gentleman's son who was driving the boat, and then it's evolved around a teenage boy who was found dead in the road. Sort of said that he was hit by a car, but he's got blunt force trauma to the head and stuff like that, which isn't consistent with anything that you get from a car crash. A maid that was pushed down the stairs, which is the maid of this family that we were talking about, and there was the son who was the person that drove the boat, and his mum that were killed apparently now by the dad, which is revealed.
So we've turned into a news show and also spoiled the whole documentary.
Spoiled everything there.
Everything.
We
So-
should probably
everything there.
put a little
We'll be
jingle in
yeah,
there.
we'll put
But
a
I said to
spoiler.
people you shouldn't really watch it anyway because it was very hearsay at the end. But
And-
now it's not.
fair.
That's what I'm
But-
saying. It should have been released later on.
Well, the thing, and you watch a lot more of them than me. This is my problem with a lot of the Netflix crime documentaries is there's not really a lot of content to them. They don't really speak to a lot of the people. A lot of it is just hearsay and hearsay and it's just a lot of it's just hearsay and making
This is
making
very
stuff up.
hearsay.
Yeah.
Very
Well, do you
hearsay.
remember what was the show we watched? Was it the one about the hotel where the girl was found in the water tank?
Yeah, that was awful.
And
wasn't
that
it?
was just, it's a shame because you just don't get that many really good. I think after making a murderer, they was like, yeah, well, let's just do all of them. And unfortunately, they just haven't got the same level of interest and intrigue to them.
And I have got 2 minutes to get in my last film, and I will do it, Neil. I will do it.
In 1.5 sentences, maybe 2,
Yes.
you watched a film you wanted to watch.
No. This isn't the film I wanted to watch.
Okay. Why did you watch it
this
then?
is The Unholy.
Was you made to watch it?
It's kind of a bit of both. Anyway, The Unholy, it's on Netflix. It is starring Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Okay, Negan.
Yep, Negan from The Walking Dead. And
Papa Winchester from
I've
Supernatural.
watched this film so that you don't have to. It was one of the worst horror films I've ever seen.
Really?
Yeah, it was by a first-time director called Evan Spilinopoulos. I can't say his name. But
You
yeah,
probably
it was,
shouldn't,
it was,
to be
it was,
fair.
it was one of these. It was one of those horror films which is almost a spoof of a horror film, but it's trying to be serious. But in some elements of it, it was so bad it became comical. But
Was
not
it
in a
low
good
budget?
way.
Oh.
Very low budget?
It probably was low budget, but it was trying to not be. It wasn't like a B movie horror film. It was trying to be a scary horror film, and it was just not good.
Was it my standard horror movie hate of trying to make you scared by loud noises and shaking the
Yes.
camera a bit?
Yeah,
Hate those films.
no shaking cameras, but yeah, just cheap jump scares.
Boo.
The story was pretty pants as well. The only thing about it that was any part redeemable was Jeffrey Dean Morgan's character of being a disgraced journalist, trying to redeem himself, and he's come across this miracle story about a woman who's seeing the Virgin Mary and miracles are happening around her. But of course, there are demonic elements to it.
And to be fair, Jeffrey Dean Morgan's probably the best thing in the film, right?
Do not watch this. Do not watch it.
Okay. Well, David, you're 2.5 from 3 for your recommendations today. But thank you. You've done all the listeners a service there. Coming up next, we're going to be moving on to our reviews.
Reviews.
And first up this week, we are going to be talking Apple TV's Shrinking. And this is a new show from Scrubs and Ted Lasso creator Bill Lawrence, but also written by Ted Lasso's Roy Kent himself, Brett Goldstein. And they all co-created this show with star of the show, Jason Segel. But also, this is the second big TV appearance of the year by the legendary Harrison Ford. So he's in this and 1923. Now, Jason Segel plays Jimmy, a psychiatrist who's been struggling quite badly in the past year since the death of his wife. He has a teenage daughter who he's not been able to connect with or even really take care of. And generally, Jimmy's, well, he's quite a fucking mess when we meet him. After hitting rock bottom pretty much in the first episode, he begins to make strides by getting a bit too involved in his patients' lives, most notably young Army veteran Sean, played by Luke Tenney, who has massive anger management issues since leaving the Army. Harrison Ford plays a character called Paul, and as you'd expect, he's the outwardly gruff, unfriendly, older psychiatrist, but Ford kind of plays against type here, because we see how much he cares for the other characters in the show as the episodes develop, especially Jimmy's daughter Alice, who's played by Lukita Maxwell. Also, it's not a spoiler because it's hinted at very early on, Ford's character has early onset Parkinson's, and again, they really develop that storyline with him well as the show progresses. Now, as I mentioned, Jimmy has not been much of a father, and thankfully his neighbours Derek and Liz are on hand, and they've pretty much been raising his daughter Alice in the last year, especially Liz, who's pretty much her default mum at the start of the show. Now, who here remembers from Scrubs Dr. Cox's brilliant, sarcastic ex-wife Jordan?
Yeah. Oh, I'm a big fan.
Yeah. She
Same
was
actress.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yes. She's playing to her strengths, definitely.
Yeah. I was watching it and going, this is just like they transported her character 20 years into a new show. But the reason she's in it, bar obviously being very good, Nepo wife. She's married to Bill Lawrence, the creator of the show.
Oh, yeah.
But she's brilliant, man. When I was watching this, I was like, why has she not been in more stuff over the years?
Yeah, I think she's a underrated actress who is
so
great
funny
at comedy. And the guy who plays her husband, Ted McGinley.
Yeah, from Married with Children.
I'm so glad to see him again because he's such a great actor. He's funny. And I think in the beginning couple episodes, they didn't use him enough. But again, they probably needed time to develop all the characters.
Yeah.
Because I feel like all these characters, they had to spread out the love in the beginning, and then they really just were able to grow a lot of them. Not all of them, I think, but a lot of them.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, because when I saw the initial trailer for this show, I really wasn't impressed. It was literally just Jason Segel bouncing on a trampoline. I was like, what the fuck? Is this supposed to be fun?
Yeah.
Show me what the show's actually about. And it didn't. And so I thought, okay, Harrison Ford's in it. I'm going to watch it. And I watched it one Sunday morning, and I think I binged the first 4 back to back, and I was like,
Yeah.
now I have to wait each week, Apple, you bastards.
No,
But
honestly, I actually enjoy the fact that I have to wait each week because that allows the conversation to be spread across
exactly, and
the show run.
to be fair, Netflix are the only company now still doing the binges. Everyone else has gone back to it. I think it was kind of something that COVID was kind of responsible for because people just couldn't do anything else and keep people occupied while it's going on. Yeah, this show really took me a few episodes to kind of get into the rhythm of it, but since then, I really enjoyed it. I mean, Seagal is excellent as Jimmy, and honestly, where has he been? In the mid-2010s, he was everywhere. 40-Year-Old Virgin, Sex Tape, Forgetting Sarah Marshall, I Love You Man, Bad Teacher, The Muppets reboot. He's hardly been in anything in the last sort of 5 years or so.
I'll be honest, he probably was taking a break.
It probably was, yeah, to be fair.
Yeah.
Now, as the show develops, what Lawrence and Goldstein do really well is they, like you hinted at, Jose, they develop all the characters really well. Every character has an arc. Even some of the one scene per episode patients that Jimmy sees at his psychiatrist, you know. Mm-hmm. I mean, you got Saturday Night Live's Heidi Gardner, who's like a woman who's got an abusive partner and she won't leave him. And she has maybe a couple of lines in a couple of episodes here and there, but every time she's hilarious in it. Mm-hmm. I think as well, if you watch Scrubs back in the day, and of course Ted Lasso more recently, you know, despite all the zany comedy in certain episodes, Bill Lawrence as a showrunner and a creator, as a writer, can absolutely wreck you with emotion in a few minutes. And I mean, in a heartbeat, and make you laugh seconds. You can literally wreck you with something horrific and then make you laugh seconds later. I'm thinking back, if you remember, Brendan Fraser had a mini arc on Scrubs.
I was just thinking of that.
Yeah,
literally was just thinking of that scene.
Exactly, that's what I was thinking of, and it's funny because like Jason Segel kind of reminds me of Brendan Fraser a little bit in like just physical appearance, really. You know, that kind of.
He's tall.
He's tall, and he's a dude, I guess.
He's a brunette.
Yeah, so I would say this show is definitely worth your time, and like some of the best shows, it slowly grabs hold of you, and then you realise you need to see the next episode, and most importantly, you care about the characters. Yes. So I would advise when you do get around to watching it, watch the first 2 or 3 in a row, because although the first episode is good, it doesn't really give you enough on the other characters. And the first 8 episodes, as we record this, are available on Apple, and there's only 10 in the first series. No news on season 2 yet, but on the bright side, Apple doesn't tend to cancel shows as quickly as other streamers. And, you know, if something like Mosquito Coast can get a second series, this is bound to get a second series, hopefully. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on it, Jose?
I like I said, I enjoyed it. I am glad that I stuck with it and saw the characters grow because, yeah, the first 3 episodes, you get to know everyone, but I feel like they're very close on the edge of being caricature-like with some of their personality traits. But then you realize that it is just them as their characters being these kind of ways, you know, like very optimistic, very
like his
fun.
His gay best friend, who's, like you say, spectacularly optimistic. He's a bit cliched at the start, but then when you get to know his character, and it all kind of pans out as the episodes develop.
You see that these people aren't ultimately just one shade, and because of the fact that a lot of these characters are psychologists or psychiatrists, that they are exposing the idea that, we're just hiding our pain, so we're gonna have to take our time to slowly show that to everybody. And I think that's a great thing to do as a show, is just say, hey, it's okay that you're suffering, and then you're kind of afraid to do show off.
Yeah, it's a show about grief, really.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
a comedy about grief, which I guess they probably didn't advertise that way in the first place because it's kind of a hard sell. But then again, look at something like Ricky Gervais's show, Afterlife. That's massive.
I don't know about that.
Right, that's one that's going on your list then.
Okay.
That'll make you laugh and cry.
In the same scene.
Yeah, it's very...
At the same time.
Yeah. I have to say, though, I don't know if David knows, but this kind of does strike a small chord with me because, warning, this is going to get a little emotional, but my mother passed away in November. And so it's not quite the same, but a lot of the emotional beats I can very much relate to. I think that's another reason I was able to enjoy the show, because it just kind of puts things in perspective. So it was actually a really nice thing to see at this time, where it wasn't too soon, and it's kind of like it helps a little bit with understanding what to go through, you know?
And I think that's one of the sort of Bill Lawrence's strengths of the showrunner. Like you said, he did very similar things in Scrubs, where, it's zany comedy, probably one of the first comedies that did cutaways of crazy stuff, even before Family Guy, really, if you think about it.
Yeah.
And they was doing it live action. But then he could just, there'd be a bit where JD gets attached to a patient and then, the patient dies and you're like, obviously this is like talking about the Brendan Fraser one. And then you're just watching it going, bastards, they've absolutely got me there. And again, that's kind of what Ted Lasso's done. Ted Lasso started off as a half an hour comedy in season 1, and then it became a 45-minute to an hour long drama in season 2. And it just rings you on that.
Oh yeah, and I think the fact that it can show variances, it's just not just funny, it's also touching.
Yeah.
And that's what makes a good comedy, is not just playing up for laughs, but also showing people as they are.
Yeah, it's I don't think we can get any higher recommendation than what you just said there for that show, Jose. I know I'll say the only line I will quote from the show that I had me howling in tears of laughter was when he's been I'll explain this to you briefly, David, that he's been advised on a way to like kind of process his grief, Jason Segel's character. And he's basically has to he has to kind of listen to sad music and try and cry for like 15 minutes a day. And he's just cycling down the road in floods of tears. And he just yells directly at camera, "Fuck you, Phoebe Bridgers."
Yes.
And I was pissing myself at that. That was hilarious, man. And like I say, it's such a good show. So that's a strong recommendation from both of us there, I think, David.
Wow, yeah, big one. Big one. I might have to. Honestly, I said to you guys I weren't going to watch it because, like, even before we started recording, because I just genuinely had no interest in it. But after having heard, I might have to change my mind. Because I said just do a spoiler. I was like, just spoil it, guys, because I'm not going to watch it. But now I'm glad you didn't.
We didn't spoil it. We cycled around the edges of it, screaming "Fuck you, Phoebe Bridgers."
Yes.
Right. So moving on from Shrinking. We are now moving on to I was going to say A Galaxy Far, Far Away, but that's Star Wars and not Star Trek. So my line.
Oh,
keep that in. Annoy all the Trekkies.
May the Force live long with you and prosper.
I'm pretty sure we go to prison for saying shit like that.
So we're going to move on from Shrinking, and David, Jose, we're going to boldly go. But we're not really boldly going where someone's not gone before, because we've been there before. Because it's season 3 of Amazon Prime's and Paramount Plus, which is a bizarre one. It's literally screening on both services at the same time because of a very complicated rights issue. But hey, that's before Paramount Plus was a thing over here. And yet, I'm talking about Picard, season 3, the return of Jean-Luc Picard and Patrick Stewart's defining role. Now, anyone here? Are you a Star Trek fan, David?
No, sir. Not even a little bit. Star Trek's one of those shows that I really wish I watched. But because now there's just an insane amount of content that's being created for it, it almost feels impossible to start anywhere. That's my massive problem with Star Trek. And I feel like you can't start with anything.
No, well, you could pick a show, because each show's kind of its own thing. You had the original series. I never watched that because it was a bit too before my time. And when I was sort of the age, I was like, "This is cheesy. I don't want to watch it." But Next Generation was my show. I'd get him from school, and it would be on TV at 5:00 every day on like a repeat. So I kind of got into that.
The only Star Treks I've seen have been the original. No, not the original films. The remade films with Chris Pine.
Yeah, the Kelvin universe.
Wow.
That's all I've. Is that what it's called? See, even
it's called
that
the Kelvin universe.
So here's the thing: is I think with Star Trek, what it is you can watch it, and yes, you're gonna miss references, but I don't think it's to the detriment of the shows.
No,
it just adds to the experience if you have seen previous shows and or movies.
But maybe if I rephrase it to, if I like it, I would feel overwhelmed with the amount of content that there is to catch up on.
Ah, okay.
I guarantee you could probably search online, David, and there would be watch this stuff in this guide, and you can skip these episodes. So the original series and the Next Generation were pretty much episode of the week stories. There was the occasional mid-season two-parter or end-of-season two-parter, but generally it was just a story of the week one. There wasn't a massive amount of character development. It was, we're going to go investigate this nebula. Bad guys. Or science thing. There wasn't an ongoing narrative where you had to pay attention every week.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of why. But then the third series they did, Deep Space Nine, that for me was probably the greatest one. I think I love Next Generation, but if you watch back now, the first 3 or 4 seasons are ropey as fuck. Really, there was some great acting in it, and then it's kind of when they got a bit more money in the 90s, and the last kind of couple of seasons, it was really good. But Deep Space Nine was just. It brought in religion into it. It had all these allegories for like World War II and Nazism and torture. And what a surprise, it was done by Ronald D. Moore, who went on to do Battlestar Galactica. And you can kind of see all the themes from Battlestar Galactica in Deep Space Nine. Also, it was the first one that wasn't set on a spaceship. It was set at a space station in front of this big wormhole, which everyone was trying to battle in the quadrants to beat control of. You had Voyager, which was started off fine and went terrible. That Voyager was essentially Quantum Leap, but with Star Trek. They got zapped into another universe and were trying to make their way home, and it was going to take all their lifetime. There was another show called Enterprise with Scott Bakula, which there's the link right there. I never watched it, and apparently it ran the least amount of seasons of any show and then got cancelled. And that brings you up to Star Trek Discovery, which a lot of people didn't like because it was not very Star Trek in the sort of classic.
So I've just Googled how long it would take me to watch every
all
single...
Star Trek.
And what I've Googled has come out at 626 hours.
That seems a little short.
Well, it's five straight months.
Wow.
Of doing nothing but watching Star Trek.
Right, David?
Well, if you ever break both your legs in a skiing accident...
Oh, 651 hours. 651 hours, sorry. The extra 20 hours would have made a lot
Well, that has been our brief history of Star Trek. So now we're going to talk about Picard. Picard Season 1 was perfectly fine, right? It had a good mix of the old characters that we loved from the classic Next Generation, and it brought in a bunch of new characters. And I enjoyed it. Although my one little issue was Patrick Stewart really looked his age in it at one point. You know, he just looked like an old man. He really looked old in it when I was, and he is really old.
He is old, yeah. How old is he? Is he going to be like 78 or something?
No,
he's in his 80s.
He's in his 80s, man.
Is he really?
Yeah. You can Google that, David, while I continue.
He should be retired. He should be just living it up in a care
Actors
home.
don't retire, man. They just keep going until they drop dead on set. That's the way they want to go. Like,
let's not allow that to happen to.
No, Patrick Stewart. I mean,
Patrick Stewart.
He's going to keep going. Season 2, however, of Picard was a dumpster fire. And it was just so bad. It was horrific fan service on the level I haven't seen since. It was done so badly. It's like, what the Star Trek fans like? Let's just throw it all into the mix. And it didn't work. And it made Star Trek's always. It always makes me laugh when people say about Star Trek going woke, because you're just like, well, Star Trek was literally raising all these issues, all these social issues,
decades
via way of sci-fi since the 1960s. Yeah. And what it was is, when I was watching season 2 of Picard, there was a bit in there where they was doing about immigration in the States anyway. I was like, but you're actually doing about immigration in the States. You're not actually, there's no hidden meaning to it. You're like hitting it directly on the nose. Like, they even had ICE agents in it, and you're just like, no, you're missing the point. It needs to be an allegory in Star Trek. It needs to be, you can't just hammer us with it.
Subtle.
So, and then they said, oh, we're filming season 3 of Picard straight after season 2. And I was like, well, I'm probably not going to bother because 2 I didn't even bother watching. However, the selling point of season 3 was they were bringing back almost all the Next Generation cast for this final season of Picard. One of my favourite podcasts I listened to, the Pilot TV podcast, and they reviewed it and they said, do you know what? We didn't bother watching season 2. You don't need to finish watching season 2. All you need to know is Picard retired after the last, again, he's retired about 7 times since the original show finished. And he's back on his vineyards, in France, and he receives a coded message from his former girlfriend, on and off girlfriend from the Next Generation, Gates McFadden's Dr. Beverly Crusher. And then we see her medical ship under attack. Picard solves the code and decides he needs to use his Admiral powers and go and get some of the old band back together. And he starts with Jonathan Frakes, Captain Riker. That's essentially the first couple of episodes. It's him like getting together and going, right, we need to go out and investigate what's happening here and try and rescue my former lover. I've enjoyed the episodes so far. We're 3 episodes in, but it's the arrival of Michael Dorn's Worf in episode 3 that absolutely slayed me. Now, his intro, David, he comes in. Worf is a Klingon warrior, right? Have you heard of Worf, David?
No, sir. No,
Oh,
I've heard
it's
of
a
Khan.
Right, okay. Here's a
That's about it.
brief bit history of Worf. He's a Klingon, and
Yeah.
he was the first Klingon security guy on the original Star Trek Next Generation. And he was like just buttoned up, blunt,
He was
blunt,
stiff and
stiff,
angry.
stiff and angry.
Let me just Google him. If I Google him, I might recognise him.
He's
No,
pretty much
no.
just
Well-
done Worf his whole career. But after that, he then joined he joined a spin-off after that, Deep Space Nine,
How
where
do you
he was
spell
more like
Worf?
WORF.
I know the man. Yeah, I recognise him.
So he joined Deep Space Nine as like a bit more of a warrior, and he was like there was like war storylines, and he was having fights against Klingon houses. Very reminiscent to Game of Thrones, actually, David. If you think space Game of Thrones, that's kind of what the whole Klingon fighting stuff was.
Mm.
And so then he rocks up in this episode, and he's got his batleth out. A batleth is like the sharp sword thing that all Klingons use, and he's literally decapitated someone. Absolutely just kills a bunch of guys. There's spectacular Klingon violence. And then he comes out for me with one of the best all-time monologues from any Star Trek.
Monologues.
Yeah, well, it's more like an intro to his character. Because the character he saves says, "Who are you?" Now, David, forget about Daenerys and a Mother of Dragons, Breaker of Chains, Ruiner of Franchises titles. None of that compares to the gloriousness of I am Worf, son of Moog, House of Martok, son of Sergei, House of Rozhenko, Bane to the Juras family, Slayer of Gowron. I've made some chamomile tea. Do you take sugar? It was fucking superb, man. Like, his character is just... If you're a Next Generation and DS9 fan, and of course War fan, then this show is for you. Yes, it's fan service again, but it takes the classic characters in new directions that you don't expect. Episode 3, which was the last one to air before we recorded this, was also directed by Jonathan Frakes, who plays Captain Riker. And there's such a masterpiece of acting between Frakes himself and Stuart Picard, because obviously Picard's retired. He's an admiral now. Now his former number one is a captain in his own right, and they get placed in a position where they're butting heads with each other, and everyone's like,
Ooh.
"Oh, these two," and they're fully going for it in the argument, man. And I was just watching this going, "This is that episode 3 of Picard season 3." It's perhaps for me the best single episode of Trek I've seen in quite some while. And I really,
Wow.
it's hooked me back in the series, man. I enjoyed it so much. I was like, I'm going to watch this again. And I have.
That's excellent.
You could literally just jump in at season 3 on this show, both of you, because
Wow.
they do a recap. Well, you don't need, I suppose if you've watched Star Trek Next Generation, you know who the characters are, right? So you've seen the odd one here and there, Jose?
Yes, I was a big fan of that one.
So you can jump straight into season 3. David, are we going to have to curate a list for you of the best Star Trek Next Generation episodes?
You know what, Neil? I think it's too late for me.
Yeah.
I think it's too late.
We'll just fire you out the air.
Just let
Fire
it-
you out an
I'm
airlock.
confused as to why there can be a Klingon, because I thought Klingons were the bad guys.
In the
That's where
original
I'm
series,
at.
in the original series, they were,
So how can there be a Klingon that's this guy?
because there was a peace accord.
Ah,
Yeah, it's basically they made amends.
Yeah, the Klingons aren't the bad guys, until we get round to Discovery again, which is kind of just messed everything up.
Well, Discovery was a prequel, so that's why.
And they changed time so many times. I lost track again. I
Oh,
tapped
you're
out on
right.
Discovery
Yeah.
about season 2 or 3 as well.
I mean, that looked like a good show, and I wanted to watch. I watched like 3 episodes, and I was like, "All right, is this going to go somewhere I want to keep going with?" And I guess not.
Yes, no, and its final season is airing soon as well, so it's only having one more season.
I'm gonna Google
mean-
the Star Trek timeline.
You'll be here till the end of timelines trying to find that. Now, gentlemen, the other week, I had the pleasure, I had the honour to see the face of God in cinematic form. And that face, it had a bear's face. A bear that had done a ton of cocaine. And I wondered at that point if cinema had reached its apex peak with the story of a bear who had done a ton of cocaine. Yes, I finally saw Cocaine Bear the other Friday after pretty much turning the We Need a Rose Twitter account into a Cocaine Bear Stan account. So, did it live up to the hype, or was it this generation's Snakes on a Plane? A great concept, but nothing more. Well, in my initial Cocaine Bear haze, I did give it 4 stars on the letterbox, but sadly now I think I might have to bring it down to 3 stars. Look, it does exactly what it says on the tin.
The blow's worn off.
I know. The cocaine haze wore off. Look, you do see a bear do lots of cocaine and maul the shit out of a lot of people, and most of those people are definitely dead. I will say the film opens, and I loved the Easter egg music at the start of the film. It's a minor spoiler, but bearing in mind this is Elizabeth Banks' comeback film after all the shit she had with Charlie's Angel. If you remember, one of her best films that she was in as an actress was the cult hit Wet Hot American Summer, which opens with that classic
that's true.
song, Jane. I can't remember the name of the band, but you'll know the song when you hear it. It's actually Orange Cassidy's theme music in AEW Wrestling, if anyone knows that. But yeah, so it's that song. And she's taken the same song from that film as the opening music for this film. And I thought that was a baller choice out of the gate. I liked that. I was like, yes, it's a nod to one of your best things. It took a little while for me, unfortunately, for the film to get going before the Cocaine Bear carnage started. And sadly, the characters weren't really fleshed out enough. And you end up with a mix of criminals, police, tourists, and missing children. And you know they're all going to cross paths with Cocaine Bear. So I've got a few pros and cons. Well, the pro is that bear does a lot of cocaine, like all the cocaine.
What are we talking here? Give it to me in kilos.
All the kilos, David. There's so many kilos, they had to use a word other than kilos. Basically, it's enough cocaine. Well, in the true life story, it's Cocaine Bear did a lot of cocaine and died from the cocaine. The bear does a lot of cocaine. Also, a lot of characters are ripped to shreds and disemboweled in spectacular fashion. There's a very nice disemboweling sequence later on. Also, I have to say, the film is only 90 minutes. When was the last time you saw a film that was 90 minutes?
That was
I'll tell
one
you
tight
what,
film.
man, that is all you need to know to sell a lot of people to this film. Is saying that it's short. If it's not got three numbers there, you got a lot of people.
Here's another question: is it R-rated? I'm assuming it is. Because of
hell
the
yes.
disemboweling.
How can it be slow to get going at a 90-minute film?
Well, because you're just meeting all the characters, and I was like, I don't care. Give me
Character development, yes.
Yeah,
Just give
but
me
the characters-
cocaine. Give
just
me a
give me
bear.
Cocaine Bear.
And give me blood.
I just wanted to see Cocaine Bear on the cocaine from the start on a rampage. And we're spending like 10 minutes here with this character, and I'm like, I don't care. I want to see carnage. And whenever Cocaine Bear is on screen, it's awesome. But I was like, I don't care about this character. I don't care about that character. The best two characters in a film are the two 12-year-old kids, Henry and Dee Dee. Henry probably gets all the best lines in the movie. Half, though, of which were in the trailer. Like, that bear was fucked. And that seems like the kind of thing that's going to stay with a man forever.
That's my favorite line in the trailer.
Yeah. And,
I really
well, it
enjoyed
does.
that.
I mean, there's really not much more to say about it.
The moment that stays with a man forever, though.
That's also in the trailer. That's also in the
Oh,
trailer.
is it really?
Yeah, pretty much. Just watch the trailer, you'll know. Yeah, they do. It is sadly one of those ones where they give away almost all of it in the trailer. I mean, there's not really much more to say to it, except I think the majority of the characters could have done with better development. And like we mentioned, despite the film only being 90 minutes, it drags a bit at the start. I was like, come on, this film should be like Crank. You remember the film with Jason Statham?
Oh,
Yeah,
when it's just
my
and it was
God,
shot
yes.
in. Now, if they'd kind of taken that directorial style for Cocaine Bear, that would have been awesome. Just 90 minutes with a bear. More. Imagine if they'd done it POV. I didn't see a bear POV shot. That would have been awesome. It could have been like just a bear
like-
vision, but they didn't
That's
do
like
it.
classic horror animal is POV from the animal.
Well, and that's the problem is because Cocaine Bear is so awesome as you're watching it, you're like, and it's all criminals and drug dealers kind of going after the cocaine. You're like, you're almost on Cocaine Bear's side. You know, you're just you really are. As the film develops, you're like, I don't want anything bad to happen to Cocaine Bear. If anything bad happens to Cocaine Bear, I'm going to be angry, David.
That's the new Harambe. Do you guys know about Harambe?
Harambe,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yeah. Rest in peace, Harambe.
Rest in peace. You know, everything went bad after he was put down. You know,
The world turned to shit.
that is one crazy idea right there.
Well, having said that, the film has been a massive hit. Well, it's been a big hit, not massive. It's taken 54 million worldwide on a budget of 35, and it's generally had positive reviews. However, I think, much like myself, once the Cocaine Bear memes have worn off, many of us might revise our opinion down from seeing the face of God and it being the future of cinema to it's a perfectly fine B movie.
All right, here's a question: is it better than Snakes on a Plane?
Oh, 100%. 100%. This
Nice, okay.
Cocaine Bear would eat all the snakes on the plane and still look for more cocaine.
Excellent. I think that's a good review right there.
Yeah. Also, one little fact for you. Where do you think the film was shot?
Canada.
Oh, yeah. I
That's
was gonna say
what-
Canada.
Ireland.
Canada was everyone's first guess, but no, you're right, David. It was County Wicklow Island
Where's that?
Bam.
in Ireland.
Ireland.
Somewhere. Ireland's only like
Ireland.
this big, so.
And
I
we
mean-
get to the point of the podcast where David has insulted our Irish fans yet again. It wasn't pronunciations this time, folks. It was just saying it's a small country. You must know each other.
Everybody in Ireland knows everybody. Like everybody in England knows the Queen.
So what's next then? Cocaine shark, crack rat, heroin
Was it better
hamster.
than Willy's Wonderland, bro. Heroin hamster.
Heroin
No,
hamster.
go
I
back
think
to
works
heroin
the best.
hamster. Go back
Well,
to heroin hamster. That's
so-
the choice.
The internet has been awash since Cocaine Bear with suggestions for other drug-addled animal films. And I was having a little think, and I come up with Cocaine Shark, which there's actually one called Meth Gator coming out soon. They're probably filming that just down the road from you, Jose.
Oh my goodness, yeah, that makes sense.
And my favourite, I like just for the name, I like Crack Rat. So think Ratatouille, but about a rat that's strung out on crack.
Man.
It wouldn't be a Disney film, David. I'm just saying that much. And then my
Oh,
personal
yeah.
favourite, just because it rhymes, is Heroin Hamster. I don't even know what that film would be.
Yeah.
So, listeners,
Or
It'd just be a hamster being there, like.
no, I think what you need
Like
to do
this
is have
is-
it multiples, heroin hamsters,
does.
because then there could be like a whole pack of
So it's train
hamsters
spotting.
attacking you. There we
Train
go.
spotting for hamsters. Hamster
Yes.
spotting. So, people, give us your best animal drug film combos, and we'll read them out in the next episode. And we'll definitely not copyright the best ones and steal the ideas for ourselves.
No, I doubt we'll.
So that about rounds us off for Cocaine Bear. Now, David, you've got Smile, and we've got 5 minutes. Can you do Smile in 5 minutes?
I'll give it my bestest shot. I'm sure I'll be able to do that easily. So,
I got to throw to you. I can't cut
We
from
just
that.
did it. We just
No,
did
but we
it.
didn't. I was saying you got 5 minutes. We don't tell the listeners we got 5 minutes left, and we're too cheap to pay for proper Zoom. So, David, you have a film that I have not seen, and Jose hasn't seen, or he may have seen because we haven't talked about this yet, because we didn't know this
I
was
have
coming
not.
up on the podcast. David, what film are you going to try and sell us on now?
Smile, the 2022 horror film that came out in 2022. I've already said that. It was directed and written by Parker Finn, which is his directorial debut. But of basically nothing. He's done 2 short films and now Smile. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about was how well marketed this film was before it came out,
Yes.
based on absolutely.
Yes.
But I didn't realize that this was his directorial debut as for anything, let alone a horror film. And the fact that it was given such massive marketing was surprising to me, because I thought that you just wouldn't do that, but they obviously had a lot of faith in him. So the story of Smile is a psychiatrist becomes traumatized after a patient of hers gruesomely commits suicide in front of her. Well, slits her own throat into a sort of smile kind of thing.
Kind of thing.
It's gruesome. Anyway, then she becomes haunted by a demon, ghost, whatever you want to call it, with which basically just smiles at you the entire time. Imagine, have you both seen It Follows?
I was about to say, this sounds like It Follows.
It is. The film is It Follows mixed with an Ari Aster film,
Ooh.
but not as good as either.
All right.
But it's still, that doesn't mean that it's not good. Yeah, I still enjoyed it quite a lot. However, it takes elements out of loads of different horror films, mashes it together, but doesn't really elevate any of the material.
Okay.
So with Ari Aster, it takes some of the cinematography, some of the the tracking shots Ari Aster likes to do of entering into new locations, where he rotates the camera and it makes you feel like you're like constantly on unease. So Parker Finn does that a lot in this, and from It Follows, it takes the basic premises of having a ghost that is transmissible from one person to the other, basically follows you. like in It Follows.
Yes.
Except it's not sexually transmitted like in It Follows. It is. Have you not seen It Follows, Jose? That
I have
what?
not.
That sounds
Remember
stupid,
this-
a sexually transmitted ghost, but it's genuinely
very good.
very good. It's very
Oh,
good.
that's that actual
Yeah, that's it.
premise.
It's a sexually
Oh,
transmitted
wow.
ghost.
It's a bit like The Ring. Someone has 7 days then to try and get someone else to watch your tape to take the curse.
That's it, though. Yeah, that's it. So it is similar to that, because that's and again that's another combination, because in this, people normally have 4 days before you have the person commit suicide in front of you, before you are then killed by this demon, and then it's passed on to somebody else. The biggest problem that I have with it is that it's the script isn't tight enough. There's a lot of the decisions or character revelation. The character realizes something that you as an audience member realized like 30 minutes earlier. You know,
So
but she
dumb
goes on a
horror
tri-
movie cliches in.
She goes on a trip to discover some information that you like any person with a brain cell would have been able to just assume or work out like immediately. Like, of course, this person, you know, like you've already worked it out. Why do you need this person to confirm it to you? That
Gotcha.
was annoying, but some of the jump scares in it, which is what it goes at, were quite well executed from a jump scare perspective. Not to the extent of subverting what you expect. It is still formula, but it's done well.
I have to say the trailer is probably one of the best jump scares I
There's a couple
really
in it.
got me without expecting. But the one that I enjoyed the most is the one where the person walks up to the car.
Yes, yeah.
The head just falls down, and I'm like, that was the worst thing I've ever seen for a trailer.
What works with that?
Just...
The reason that works so well is because it's in bright sunshine in daylight. Bad things don't happen in bright sunshine in daylight, and so that's when it kind of keeps you off piste as a viewer, I suppose it would be.
Yeah, so it does have and execute its jump scares very well, and it is definitely a film that I'd recommend both of you watching. I think if you like your horror films in any respect, I think Parker Finn's going to be one to look out for. I think based on his directorial and writing debut, this is definitely one that's going to... He's going to be another one like similar to Asta, where if he gets a second film and it's just as good as this one, then
one to watch.
He's definitely one to watch, 100%. And I don't understand how it managed to have such brilliant marketing for his directorial.
And last thing I'm going to mention, David, is it had a budget of only 17 million and it made 217 million.
Yeah, well, it's based off the marketing. The marketing was huge for it. Huge. Yeah, okay, that's it. That was great. I'll give it a 8 out of 10 on the horror. It was good. I enjoyed it.
Right, and finally today, we are going to be talking about, in non-spoiler detail, for those of you, as it's just come out literally the day we record this, and that is Scream 6.
Hello, Neil.
Ooh.
I beg your pardon?
Do a good... Hello, Neil.
No, that's terrible, David.
Hello, Sydney.
Hello, Sydney.
Hello, Sydney.
Oh, that was really good, actually. You definitely need that scratchy. Yeah. Yes. Who would have thought we'd be talking about Scream 6
What's
after
your favorite
4?
scary movie?
I have to admit, 2 and 3 were not great, but it's one of those series that really pushed through, and it surprisingly got better.
Did you say 1 and 2 weren't great?
No. 2 and 3 were not.
I like 2. I kind of like 2.
Jose, Scream. I said Scream was my favorite film of all time. The first.
You did?
Scream.
Really?
I do really like it. To the point where I haven't seen the new Scream yet.
You haven't seen 5?
No, I've seen 5.
Right.
The sixth one that you're about to.
Well, it did only come out yesterday, so as we record this. So anyway, I'm going to try and stay as spoiler-free as I can for Scream 5, which Jose hasn't seen yet. So all I will say is, after surviving the events of Scream 5, we follow sisters Sam and Tara, played by Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega, who is just everywhere at the minute because of
Hot
Wednesday.
property.
She's a hot property. And they're in New York. And it's set a year after the events of Scream 5. And Jenna Ortega's Tara, she's just trying to live a normal life, David. She just wants to go to college and get a degree.
I'm sorry, I interrupted, but can you imagine the amazing casting of having Jenny Ortega, and now like
she's a massive star.
Capitalizing, yeah, that's amazing.
And I think you notice that as the film progresses, and her sister Sam, who is ostensibly the lead, Melissa Barrera, she's just working.
Fair, Scream 5 helped make her a star.
Yeah, well, she had Scream 5, she had X.
Well, X was very small compared.
It was.
So Scream 5 was one of the biggest ones, and then Wednesday, obviously, she blew up.
And I didn't realise she was also in You Season 2, which I've just started watching as well. She's in that as well. Yeah.
So she was on the rise.
Yeah. She was doing, and she's hosting Saturday Night Live this week as well.
Oh, yes. Oh, according to recording time. Who knows when this is released, how well she did on Saturday Night Live.
We'll find out when we briefly mention it, maybe.
We will stop interrupting you.
Oh, thank you. Great. Can we get back to the basic plot of Scream 6? So, yeah, the sisters are in New York. It's a year after the last film. Tara just wants to go to college. Sam, she's just working dead-end jobs, and she will not let Tara out of her sight, which is, kind of causes a bit of tension between the sisters. Also, joining them in their college journey are the brother and sister from Scream 5, David, Chad and Mindy, who also survived Scream 5, And they are...
There's a lot of spoilers for Scream 5 here for Jose.
Not really.
Jose, sorry.
Well, we can't...
I'll be honest. I just took a look at the cast, and there's a spoilers right there.
So there you go.
I was just like, I don't look at the cast if you want to be surprised.
Yeah.
Just watch the movie.
But so Chad and Mindy, played by Mason Gooding and Jasmine Savoy Brown, they are actually the niece and nephew of Randy, the film geek from the original Scream.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we know that from the 5th one, don't we?
Yeah, but Jose doesn't because he hasn't seen the 5th one, which is
Oh,
why
yeah,
I was
yeah.
explaining.
Sorry, Jose. Yes.
It's all right. It's all right.
I was so sad when Randy died in the second.
Everyone was sad when Randy died.
Man,
Oh,
it
yeah.
pissed me
He
off
was-
to the point.
Jamie
where
Kennedy
I was
did a
just
great
like,
job
man.
as
But I will say, Mindy is his heir apparent. She knows all the rules. She is the person who explains the rules, and she did it. She does it in Scream 5 and in Scream 6. And
excellent.
she's awesome. She's so good. She's probably one of the best new characters in the franchise. And also, as you'd expect, there are so many bloody stabbings in this film, and I think we might have to do a spoiler special later on when you guys have caught up on it.
Okay,
Now-
I'm down for that.
I saw this last night, as we record this, as part of a double bill with Scream 5. And I think the new directors to the franchise, Gillette and Bettelin Olpin, and what they've done really well is make Scream 6 feel like a direct continuation of the same story that they started with the Carpenter sisters in Scream 5. And I must say, you know what? When I saw Scream 5 last year in the cinema, I thoroughly enjoyed it, thought it was good, didn't think about it again at all for the rest of the year. But watching it a second time last night, knowing who Ghostface is, made it so much more enjoyable the second time round, because you're watching it going, oh, okay, I see what you're doing there. Oh, yeah, that's a nice red. You know, it's really well done. And you see how well they've crafted it. And so you almost demand seeing it twice to really understand what a great job they've done with it. So I'd highly recommend watching 5 as soon as you can, and as close as you can before you see 6, to see them as close as you can together. So, without getting into plot and no spoilers, here are my kind of pros and cons of Scream 6. The opening is definitely something we have never seen in a Scream film before, and indeed, I can't think of another horror film where I've seen such a clever opening. So they absolutely smash it out of the park on the really inventive, original way of doing it.
The opening, the moment in the trailer where they're in the shop.
I'm not telling you.
Okay.
Yes. No spoilers.
No spoilers. Because
Okay,
what
I can
David likes to
guarantee it
do...
is. I bet it is.
How much do you want
David,
to
I'm going to hurt you from over here.
bet? It's going to transatlantic punch you in the face. So as per in the last film, Sam and Tara are both excellent characters. Like Melissa Barrera is absolutely badass in it. Just the amount of damage she does in the film and the last film is just stupendous. And of course, we all know how great Jenna Ortega is, and they're both so good in this film. Like the sisterly bonds in it are done so well. You're rooting for both the characters so much. And yeah, as I mentioned, a real special shout out to Jasmine Savoy Brown's Mindy, who, as a niece of Jamie Kennedy's original film geek Randy, once again, she is his spiritual successor. And she's the explainer of the rules of horror films to the new lot. And in this case, is this a sequel to a requel? As they like joke about in the she's just like, well, look, if you, and there's so many bits where she'll like run through, well, yeah, but you know, legacy characters could die, nothing's off the table, it's always this character, you know, and basically it's kind of what she's doing a really good job of saying it could be anyone, which is what's
You
really
know what you
cleverly
just
done.
made me realize? Is this a legacy sequel or is it just a sequel?
It's a
'Cause I
legacy.
know it's
Both.
Well,
both.
well, once you've seen 5 does tie into the original films.
Okay.
And also,
honestly, I think after 3, I never watched 4 or 5.
I can't remember much about 4 at all. 3 was okay.
4 was
but,
the one where they're live streaming everything. So that's the rule of 4, I think, with Hayden Panettiere, which is the legacy character that's in this one.
What makes me laugh is one of my favourite scenes, actually. Mindy has a scene with returning star Hayden Panettiere as Kirby from Scream 4, and they're sitting there debating about underrated horror films and sequels, and they're literally just bouncing films off each other.
Okay.
Ooh, I like
What do we
this.
think? What do we think, guys? Underrated second films. I mean, Freddy, yeah.
Jason.
Friday the 13th 2, that's a decent one. He's still not got his mask at that point.
Well,
He
think
doesn't
about
get
it though.
till
It was
third
the
one.
first time he was actually Jason. That was
First one he's Jason, but he's got
killer.
the mask. He hasn't got the mask, has he? He's got the.
And that
the sack
ties
on
in
his
really
head.
nice to Scream, which we're going to get back to. Just herding cats. David, when you get round to watching this, I forget which film it was. There was a film we had recently, and I made you count how many. Oh, it was Halloween. It was Halloween Kills, and
Oh, how many times they say Halloween?
how many times they said Evil Dies Tonight, David had to log for us because they said it so many bloody times. So
26
you're
on it, I think.
26 times they say Evil Dies Tonight when it clearly wasn't going to.
Wow, that's a lot.
It was too many. It was 25 too many. Your mission, David, when you get round to watching this, or you, Jose,
Don't
doesn't
ruin
matter.
it. Will this ruin it in any way?
No,
by making
it will
me
not.
Think of what this is.
No. It's, no
Will it-
spoilers. What I'm saying is this is the stabbiest Scream ever. There are so many stabbings and knife injuries in this film.
Well, it is New York.
Now we got.
Hey,
our
I've
New
been to
Yorkers
New
back.
York. It was fine.
I get it.
We have the occasional listener in New York, and I've been there, and it was very nice both times.
I've never been. I'm just joking. I have no idea. I think knife crime's worse in London. I think because
We don't have guns, and that's a whole other podcast. So, David, your mission when you watch it, or Jose, is to count how many times someone is stabbed.
Would one person getting stabbed 3 times count as 3?
You have to count each time.
Each time there's a penetration of the skin.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
And there's a lot. There's definitely more stabbings in this and penetrations of the skin, which is a weird way to say it, than there are people saying "Evil Dies Tonight" in Halloween.
Yeah, there definitely is a joke that we're leaving unused with the words "penetration of the skin."
Well, that's what the knife is. The knife's meant to represent.
Well, you've mentioned this before. You're a dick. Yeah, you're a dick, David.
Well, it is. That's part of it. It's a part of it.
Yeah. Also, I will mention there is a very nice Easter egg near the start of the film when some characters are watching on TV, and it's only briefly shown in the background, so I was kind of annoyed because I would like to have seen a bit more reverence to it. Friday the 13th, Jason Takes Manhattan.
Ooh, nice.
That was in the background.
Oh,
So
nice.
I was like, yes, recognised game. I was very happy with that. And what I really liked about this film was it tries to subvert what we expect from a Scream film as much as possible, but not just a Scream film, a sequel to a reboot of the franchise, or a requel as they call it. And you're watching it, and honestly, they must have been like when they were crafting this script. Right, we need to do the exact opposite of what happens every time here. Right, but is everyone going to suspect that? Maybe. Okay, so we're not going to do exactly that. And it's very inventive. I will give it that. It's very clever. Have to mention, they go back to the original music with Red Right Hand, which is the classic Nick Cave song from the original Scream film. And they did it years before Hellboy used it. And they did it years before it became the Peaky Blinders theme song as well. Jose, have you ever heard of Peaky Blinders?
I've heard of Peaky Blinders. I've seen a lot of females be
Obsessed by Cillian Murphy.
Yes, that's the word I was looking for. So I know of it, but
Right,
this is another show that I
will
have
be
not
on
caught
your
up.
list.
Cillian Murphy is a very good-looking man, and that's another thing you'll need subtitles for because they're very brummy.
Oh yeah,
They're very brummy.
I mean, it looks very enjoyable.
It's
but
very
like,
good. Also, the good thing, Jose, for you is when we're recommending all these British shows, British TV seasons are about 6 episodes.
Yes,
So it's
but some of these shows, you know what? The one thing got me with Sherlock though is
it's a
one of those
2-hour
episodes
movie.
was like, I was like, okay, this is great, but I'm sitting here for a lot longer than I expected.
Right, and getting back to Scream 6, we have to address the underpaid elephant not in the room. Not to call Nev Campbell an elephant, that was a bad way to put that. As you may or may not know, the franchise star, Sidney Prescott, played by Nev Campbell, was apparently lowballed by the studio for this film and told them, quite rightly, to go fuck themselves, and so she's not in the film.
Oh,
And I wondered, is this just, thing? Is she going to be in the film or not? Is she going to turn up and this is like part of the thing to keep it quiet? And I'm not going to spoil that here.
ooh, okay, I like it.
But I would say if she wasn't in the film does a very good job of making the focus the new sisters in it, Barrera and Ortega's characters. As I was watching it, I was like, do you know what? It's so laser focused on the Carpenter sisters storyline. And that's got to be a nod to John Carpenter as well, right?
Yeah.
Be calling them the Carpenter sisters. And in fact, if you in Scream 5, there's a bit where they drive down a road and it's Elm Street. So like they're getting all their nods in, I forgot that actually Scream 5 was dedicated to Wes Craven because it says at the end for Wes, because he'd obviously passed away
nice.
for the times there. So finally on my pros, I will say the performances are really good across the board. All the actors are superb in it, and the writing is really clever and inventive in regards to dialogue and set pieces. However, I have 2 cons. And one of them is the film is guilty of using so many dumb horror movie cliches later on. Characters split up at stupid times and they walk off by themselves after an emotional trauma. No, you should stay together at this point. right? It's so dumb. And I'm like, the film doesn't address it. And it's so sharp and so smart in other areas of the way the story's being told that it's kind of annoys the piss out of me. That they're just, and it's almost like you feel they're going from set piece to set piece. And, it doesn't matter how they get there. Oh, this bit of the script doesn't matter. But it should do, because it's a dumb decision. And our characters are supposed to be smart and know the rules of horror films. And sadly, for me, the film's biggest letdown is the Ghostface reveal. Because it just left me feeling kind of meh. And that generally seems, from what I've read online, to be the general consensus. It's a really good film. It probably shows you what a good film it is, that even most of us being disappointed by the reveal of the Ghostface, it's not enough to stop you enjoying the film. And I would say, again, without any spoilers, that I think we're headed towards Scream 7. And I really want to see
excellent.
where
Dude,
the character...
it's never going to end.
Well, I kind of feel what they're doing...
if it makes money...
And they're cheap to make. And look, they turned this around in a year. Scream 5, only came out this time last year. And now Scream 6 is out. And now they've
I was
proved...
wondering about
They're
that.
money machines, man. Easy to make money machines.
But I feel like they did a good job then if you're overall like
I was really impressed
enjoying
by it.
the
I
movie.
really enjoyed it. And despite the reveal, it was just annoying cliches at a few points where characters are doing dumb shit, but it's a horror film, so they are going to do dumb shit. But if you're trying to be smart and say, but we know characters do dumb shit, you shouldn't do dumb shit, but then you do dumb shit, and other characters aren't calling you on it, it kind of annoyed me a little bit there. But also, the reveal of the Ghostface, I was just like, really? That character? Really? No. And I kind of had that, and David, you've seen 5. I kind of had that reaction to the reveal in 5 the first time as well. I kind
Which
of like,
one?
One.
I haven't seen
No,
it.
there's always 2, man. It's a
There
part of
isn't.
Scream.
There was only 1 in 4. And that's a plot point
No,
that is
there's
raised.
2 in 4.
Then it must be in 3. There is one Scream film, David, where there is only one killer because it is mentioned in Scream 6.
Really?
It's a plot point
Oh,
in Scream 6.
Okay.
So, it must be 3 or 4. So, I guess roll on Scream 7. We don't need to know right now. So, I guess roll on Scream 7, because what I want to see the directors finish this story. You know how we saw the new Halloween films, David? And the first one was kind of good. We kind of enjoyed it. It was good. That's probably one of the last times we actually went to cinema. Oh, no, we went to cinema. That was pre-COVID, wasn't it? And then we saw Halloween Kills, and it was largely pants. And then we saw Halloween Ends, and it was also largely pants. And then we saw that the guy who did that trilogy is doing an Exorcist trilogy this year. And was like, no, you step away from classic horror franchises. Don't drag them out of fucking... Whereas these guys, I was like, no, I want to see the third one. Because they've done such a good job of making the sisters, the main characters of the franchise, and tying it in really well to the original characters in clever ways, that I want to see where this story goes.
It's like kind of like the Fast and the Furious, where it had a few bumps along the way, and then it just kind of turned around.
And then when they got to the 5th film, they kind of hit reset, brought in some new actors. I'm not saying Jenna Ortega could be the new Rock, but they brought her in, and she's a star on the rise. The Rock was a star on the rise there, and boom, this film. I think it's going to do really well. Again, we'd just like to thank everyone for downloading our last episode, which, since we've been on air recording, let's have a look, and let me check those numbers for you guys. And
we're not giving away the numbers, Neil.
I'm not giving away the numbers. I'm just going to let you know how many.
Keeping it mysterious.
Keeping it mysterious.
So that the ad people come for us.
Let me do an Owen Wilson. Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
We have crossed, let's just say, a very good landmark with this thing. So again, thanks to everyone who has downloaded the episode and retweeted and shared it. And I guess that means this episode that we've just done is going to be even bigger, right, guys?
Yeah.
That makes sense to me.
That's how stuff works in the real world and online.
Yes, always gets better. That's the goal.
So I think that's all the time we had for this week. Say goodbye, Jose.
Goodbye, Jose.
Say goodbye, David.
We'll be right back.
And we'll see you next time.
We needed roads.